Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Hello! Happy Friday! You were on mute, buddy. Get
People
it
of
together.
Earth! I was trying to do the watch
People
party. It still didn't
of
work.
Earth. I know, it didn't work for me either. I feel like
Well-
Facebook's done some sort of update that's eluded us.
Won't allow you to watch party your own watch party. Well, that's
It's
just
mean.
fine. They can
Just mean.
go kick rocks.
Yep. Well,
Well-
happy Friday. I noticed today, Aki, that we were supposed to have some sort of expedition to the Intrepid Space and the Air and Space Museum. I should
Yes,
say.
we were supposed to intrepidly venture forth to
Yeah,
attend a lecture, probably on the Milky Way or something like that.
probably. I
But
don't remember what we
alas,
were supposed to do.
Me
but
either, because we must have put it in the calendar 8 months ago.
I thought all that pre-pandemic stuff would have petered out around July. Apparently
Yeah.
not.
Well, we were working around my ridiculous schedule, and I think I was like, "Oh yeah, the 30th
That's
of October,
right.
I'll
That's
be home."
exactly it. That's
And we're
what
like,
happened.
"Let's go to that one." Well, now we're going to ourselves because this is our podcast about Star Trek Discovery, and so you're listening to Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast in which we discuss one of our favorites, if not our favorite, depends on the time of day. Star Trek franchises, Star Trek Discovery, which is in its 3rd season, even as we speak. Episode 3 dropped yesterday, and so we're going to talk about it. Our star date today is stardate 31030.8, and thus we will be discussing episode 3 of season 3, entitled "People of Earth."
People of Earth.
Do you want to? Let's just run it down.
It's time to run it down.
Can you run it down for me? What just happened? Can you run it down for me?
Okay, let's talk about episode 3. So we know, and then I immediately start talking about episodes 1 and 2. Episode 1, Michael gets to the future and has to deal with future stuff by herself. Discovery has not shown up. Episode 2, Discovery shows up, the whole crew, and they have to get their bearings in this future 930 years from when they landed. So we get to episode 3 rather, and that's where Michael finally meets up with Disco. At the end of episode 2, she's the stranger that shows up and pulls them out of the parasitic ice, and she says, "I've been looking for you guys, and it's been a year, and I finally found you." And they all look at each other. So we begin first with a flashback, and it's Michael doing a personal log that she's sending out on a repeating frequency to Discovery in the hopes that she'll find it. And it's sort of about the year that she's had. And so she's talks about the dilithium supplies drying up 700 years after they left, and then the burn happens after that, and how she's had to live as a courier, and it's the way that she can find out what has happened to the Federation and other stuff in the future. And she kind of is in that year has learned to accept her fate, that she doesn't know when Discovery will come, and that maybe her life is now going to be this. And she's sort of talking about how she's learning to become different, and she's learning to let them go, even though she will love them forever. And then in the middle of her monologue, she gets an alert that Discovery has shown up. So that's sort of what must have happened while, Saru and Tilly were down on the surface fighting cowboys. So there's a tearful reunion at the top of the episode. Michael comes into she gets transported in. She hugs Tilly, she hugs Saru, she hugs Detmer, she hugs Owashekun, she hugs everybody. It's great. She sees Giorgio, uh, and it's the moment we've all been waiting for the last 2 episodes. And now some action begins. So she's talking to Saru, and she's kind of basically explaining the whole burn thing. And she also says, well, my friend Book helped. I borrowed his ship, and I promised him some dilithium for getting us here. By now, we know that dilithium is like the most rare, the most sought after commodity in the galaxy, the sector, the who knows. Um, and so she says she doesn't quite know about Book. It's interesting because I'm not sure if she's telling the truth or if it's real, because when she mentions her friend Cleveland Booker, Saru says like, "Oh, is he from Earth?" And she goes, "No, but that's weird that his name would be Cleveland Booker, right?" I guess I haven't gotten that story out of it, even though they've been living together for a year. She goes on to inform the crew about the burn, and she mentions this transmission she got from Earth that she found, that's apparently 12 years old, from an Admiral Senatal. But because like lithium is so hard to get, and I guess different forms of fast and light travel are not as fast as warp travel, she has been unable to go from the
Mm.
they're in to go to Earth. So now that Discovery's back, they'll be able to jump using the spore drive directly to Earth. And so she comes up with this idea that they jump just outside of like sort of sensor range, and they fly in like they're a ship coming back at sublight that was stranded during the burn. So Tilly and Michael catch up. Uh, I wrote down this quote, even though it's not really a quotable moment, but quote, "Cake is eternal," which I think is just a beautiful sentiment.
Mm.
And Tilly, is sort of like, maybe you had to let us go. I understand. And she says, "I may not know you now, but I do know you." And she sort of just says, expresses her fondness for her. Book comes aboard and gets a sort of "Are you dating my daughter?" sort of grilling
Yeah.
Giorgio.
I loved that. Yeah.
Which is pretty great. And but he does say that apparently they have no. He doesn't. Yeah, it's mysterious what exactly Michael and Book have been up to for a year, except that they've been currying together.
I honestly took it at face value, and he was like, "Well, no, we haven't, because we haven't." And I assumed
Then he said, "No,
they
we're
just
not going to talk
haven't.
about this."
Well, yeah,
Possibly.
because I think,
Yeah.
but the way they said goodbye at the end, I sort of figured nothing's happened. They've tried to keep it professional because they don't know how long they're, going to be on this journey together, and that's what I figured.
She does call him in her monologue at the beginning a friend in the truest sense, or in every sense, I think she says. So I still think maybe they're not like, for lack of a better word, boinking, but I think there's some, yeah, that's right. I said it. You can bleep it out, America. But
No.
I think there's something deeper going on there, but we can come to that later.
Is it
Book
not
comes
just,
aboard.
they're in love and they haven't said it yet?
It's been a year.
So they're the only two people or certainly he's the only person she knows.
But it does show her like interacting with other people. She gets that. I mean, there's that weird thing she gets when she says she's trying to find out about what happened to the Federation. She gets that tube from a stranger, and it has part of a ship's assignation on it. It has NCC 4774, but the rest is covered by that person's thumb. So I don't know. I feel like that was a little hint that she's maybe figured some stuff out.
Mm.
Anyway, so Book goes, he meets Michael after he manages to evade Giorgio's interrogation, and she gives him a big like cylinder of dilithium, and he's sort of flipped out at how much dilithium they have because dilithium is so rare. And Book asks her, like, does this feel like home? And Michael says it feels familiar but far away. And Book is sort of inviting her, like, if you don't feel like you owe these people something, you can always come back to what we were doing. And Michael sort of counters with an invitation to Book, like, hey, you can come to Earth with us. We need your ship to help us conceal our dilithium because everyone will be scanning for that, and it would help us. And then they have a weird conversation in the elevator. Don't you think this is where I feel like there's a lot of weird stuff going on in subtext? Book says, "What are we talking about?" And Michael says, "Shush." I mean, he was like, Discovery we, or is there another we we're talking about? What other we is there?
Well, I thought, if she stays with Discovery or if she goes with Book. It's still undecided.
All right, you get to be the optimist, but I feel like maybe there's something we don't know.
All right.
So, but Michael does convince Saru to put all of their dilithium on Book's ship, and then put Book's ship in the bay so that it can cloak, so that no one can see that they have dilithium and they won't attract any attention. Saru's a little on the fence about it, and he kind of questions Michael's judgment because when they got together with the bridge crew and she explained the whole burn thing, and they were supposed to have a discussion about who would be captain, right? Because I was left hanging at the end of last season. Michael just says, no. It's you. I don't think, she says, quote, I don't think it was ever me. Which I think Saru was like, I find it strange that you didn't even consider being the captain after all this time, after looking first for a year. But, whatever, like you say, maybe Michael's just...
But after all this time, she's had to let it go. And to come back to it, and, it's just been too long.
To be captain? She spent 1 year in the future. You're not going to plot corner me. All right. She spent 1 year in the future, and she spent the rest of her whole life like
she's
as an
changed.
adult
Michael's
being in
changed.
Starfleet. Well, yes, but has she changed so much that she doesn't want the captaincy? She doesn't want to lead this crew?
You, more than anyone, know that some people don't want to be captain.
But that's
I've
not
always
Michael from
asked you.
before. I don't want to be captain. I've never wanted to be
Right.
captain.
I
Yeah.
know.
Michael does not have that going on. She was number one on the Shenzhou. She was like next in line to be captain. I mean, come on. She's the one that was
reconfigure
driving
your
Tilly
priorities.
to figure out how to become part of the command training program, and how she's a driven person who would seek the highest level of... I mean, she gave that speech at the end of season 1. Anyway, I just think it's very curious. She shows up with a new hairdo, and she's like, I don't want to be captain, whatever. Okay, so once that's all set up, they do a sport. That's right.
In fact, you've got a very similar haircut.
I do, but I can't throw it with the headphones on. They do a black alert, and they go to the Earth system. They jump just outside of Saturn. They approach Earth, but then discover that Earth is surrounded by a super duper force field. And then 2 ships come out from the surface, and they are confronted by a person who hails them by the name of Captain Ndoye, who says that she is from the United Earth Defense Force, and that Discovery is not welcome here. And after some discussion where Saru, I guess, passes muster by saying, like, we're a Starfleet ship, we just showed up, and we don't have anything, we're not pirates or anything like that. She says, okay, well, maybe we can talk, but first you have to undergo inspection. And Saru says, okay, great, we'll prepare for your arrival. And she's like, we're coming aboard now. And then the entire ship is swarmed with United Earth Defense personnel, who immediately start doing an intensive search of the ship. So Michael and Book, who were out of uniform this whole time, rush back to Michael's room, and they put on uniform.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
They put on uniforms. That's it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about Book's abs.
Oh, well, listen, I mean, I can walk and chew gum. They're putting on the uniform so that they can blend in, so that nothing seems untoward, and Book's delicious abs are on view for all the world to see. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
I mean, he's got some love handles, that boy, though.
Yeah, but they're the right kind of love handles. They're perfectly apportioned. I wouldn't even call them love handles. They're like they're just we don't have to get into it. Book is in great shape. He's not like weirdly skinny. He's like he's a in shape fella who talks to plants and animals.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
He's a sensitive soul.
He's a space druid. Okay, so
with killer abs.
With killer abs. Listen, they may have love handles, but they're nice to look at nonetheless. So you tell me. Okay, so Michael and Giorgio meet up once Michael's in her suit, and Giorgio says, like, oh, you look a little uncomfortable in that suit. And Michael sort of throws it back to her. But Giorgio, I think, really has Michael's number because she, at this point, she goes like, "Oh, you've been on your own for like a year. You got used to like calling shots the way you like to call them, and now it's a little difficult to have things go back to the way they were." And Michael's like, "Oh, I don't know." And then Giorgio's like, "Please, I can see the look in your eyes. I can see that you all your life have had these responsibilities, and they are gone, and you started to figure out what you would do if you were in charge of yourself, and now you're finding it hard to let someone else be in charge of you again." And she walks off. So, dun dun dun. That's what
Dun
I'm
dun
saying.
dun.
I'm just saying there's something going on with Michael. That's all.
Okay.
Michael
I
shows
hear
up
ya.
in Saru's ready room. Saru's talking to Captain Doye, and basically we find out that Earth rebuilt itself after the burn to become self-sustainable, but they've had to be extremely defensive because there's so many attackers coming at them for their dilithium. And the most recent attacker is apparently someone ruthless by the name of Wen, who's been shooting down their ships and trying to steal their stuff. And they wanted to make sure that Discovery wasn't somehow in league with Wen. But they also find out that Starfleet has not been on Earth for the last 100 years. So the message that they're trying to find that was from 10 years or 12 years ago, it's a mystery as to how they could have received that, because Starfleet headquarters moved right after the burn, because apparently Earth felt it made them a target for people who wanted dilithium. They didn't know if it was an attack, what the deal was. So nobody knows where Starfleet HQ is. Meanwhile, in the science lab, Stamets and Tilly are making a new, quote, friend slash someone has arrived who's younger and more exuberantly annoying than Tilly, basically, and also annoys Tilly, which I think is great. And that is, I guess, Inspector Adira. I don't know exactly what the rank for Adira would be. But basically, Stamets is running around like a chicken with his head cut off because they're going through all his stuff, and he's like, "What are you doing there? Why are you touching that?" And they catch Adira doing something with one of the panels, and then Adira deflects by saying, "Why is that spore cube hooked up to the main bridge?" And Stamets is like, "What are you talking about? I do experiments there. Get out of here." And then the person in charge tells Adira, like, "We're here to investigate, not to forget the word that he used. Engage, not to engage." And he says, "We're done." And he pulls back in his tiny glowing drones, and he says, "We're about to get out of here." But then, red alert, baby, because 5 ships come out of nowhere, and it's when? Are you? Yeah, hit me.
Red alert.
It's when ships, and Ndoye is on the bridge with Saru when he arrives, because they were just coming out of that meeting, and Wen actually hails Discovery, and Captain Doye says not to respond, that you don't respond. They have standing orders just to shoot down Wen, which of course is counter to everything Starfleet stands for. And Saru's like, "You have no authority on my bridge." So he's like, open a communication. They talk to Wen, and he turns out to be not super talkative. He's basically like, "Surrender your dilithium or we'll shoot at you. We'll take it by force. We want it now. We don't believe that you're a ship that has been sailing at sublight. You showed up on our radar suddenly, and we're going to come and get you." So Doye is like, "Okay, listen, if you're not going to take this serious, then I'm going to take it seriously." And she contacts all her inspectors. She's like, "Let's get out of here, and we're going to take care of Wen with our like planetary defenses or something." But when they try to transport out, they're unable to do so. And Doye says, "Okay, this is sabotage." And Saru says, "Please, we would never sabotage. We'll find out what the situation is. But for now, we're going to take care of Wen, and you can just sit still and take it easy." Meanwhile, Michael's come up with a plan, which he has not informed anyone of. She goes to find Book, who's trying to get a buzz on by drinking alcohol, only to find out that it's synthahol and therefore practically useless for that. And Michael's like, "We got to go get your ship, and we're going to fly out there." And she mentions some plan they came up, Donatu 7 plan. He's like, "Do you remember that?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "You remember?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so we get as they're like doing this caper that they're doing, we get an experience of like how much shenanigans, how many capers, how many close calls they've been in over the year that they've been together, because they're sort of like, "What about that thing we did at that place that time?" And he's like, "No, I got a bloody nose." And he's like, "What about that thing we did at that other thing?" And Michael's like, "No, I was pulling scales out of my my head or whatever. So they leave with Bookship. Discovery picks up on that. Discovery, they have no idea why Michael would have left the ship. And Michael's sort of depending on Saru to figure it out. Saru's confused, but Giorgio helps Saru figure out like that maybe there's some cloak and dagger here and he's going to need to be intuitive and play along. Meanwhile, Michael's able to negotiate with Wen by saying, we have the dilithium, we'll give you what you need. Earth does fire some torpedoes, and Discovery moves itself into the way of the torpedoes. It's worth mentioning that Detmer has a bit of a insubordination moment at that time, but then eventually comes to. Michael uses Discovery's position as leverage to get Wen to agree with her. And then when Wen says transport the dilithium over, we shoot back to the Discovery. We have no idea how that went. But eventually Michael and Book show up with Wen, and they say, we got him, and we still have all the dilithium, and they're not going to fire on us while they're commanders with us. And also Wen has like a weird mask on, like a sort of insectoid head mask. Not sure. So we don't really know what the deal is. But once they take Wen aside and they try to negotiate between Wen and Ndoye for the Earth collective or whatever, Giorgio reveals when she rips the helmet off, possibly killing him if he couldn't breathe atmosphere, but whatever, she knew, that Wen is actually a human from Titan. There was a base on Titan that had declared itself independent from Earth, but then suffered a tragic accident. And when they approached Earth to ask for help, they were immediately shot out of the sky. And so they have not been able to communicate because, as you may recall, they have standing orders to just basically shoot whoever shows up. But Michael and Saru are able to get them to come to the table and discuss things. So maybe share some dilithium and share some research and negotiate something, because after all, they are living in the same solar system. In the meantime, Stamets finds Adira, who had in fact stolen like some scans, and basically explains the whole deal to Adira, like the spore drive, and that he's the pilot, and that the ship is from 930 years ago, and that if Adira wants to know any more, well, it's weird because Adira basically says like, I want to go with you, and says that she knows Admiral Tall, and so then I guess she gets special dispensation from Ndoye to go with Discovery once everything's been sorted and the negotiations are happening. And we find out that well, this is weird. We find out that Adira is Admiral Tull, because even though Adira is a human, somehow Adira has connected to a Trill symbiont, which apparently only Trills could do, but now maybe humans can do it anyway, but is unable to access the memories perfectly. And so that's sort of the situation Discovery finds itself in. There's one little final scene where the bridge crew finally does get some to go down to Earth and see the campus where they were 930 years ago. And the camera pulls back as they look up, and we see Starfleet headquarters, no longer Starfleet headquarters, but still the Golden Gate Bridge stands. And that is People of Earth, Episode 3.
So, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? I really liked it. I think there was a lot of like emotional release, and you know, that you would get with a Frakes episode, as we were saying earlier.
Yes, I think with Frakes you get a lot of the like interpersonal. There's a bit of the Star Trek is a family experience. Frakes is very good at framing that. He's also great at doing like high adventure stuff with Star Trek, but when he directs an episode like this, I can see why maybe they picked him, or he picked it, because he was great for this. But you were saying that people have been critical of the episode, saying it was too Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, the fan groups, there was some criticism about it. In fact, sorry, it wasn't the fan groups. It was one of the blogs, or a couple of the blogs, said it was very Scooby-Doo, or Scooby-Doo did a better job of doing Scooby-Doo than Star Trek did.
Yeah.
And I think obviously the moment was when, you know, Philippa Georgiou pulled off the head of Wen.
Yeah. When?
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 Who's on first?
I'll tell you tomorrow. So I think that is it's a sick burn, pun intended, but also ridiculous because that's the show is not about the ghost in the cupboard. The show is about what has happened in the future. So the little twist, the micro twist, is that Wen is actually a human from Titan, and that. But what we're learning is not. Well, surprise, surprise! Humans live on Titan. That's not the thrust, the main thrust of this episode. The main thrust, in my opinion, of that A plot line was that Earth has become this sort of highly defensive, highly militarized. They're out of the Federation, self-sustaining, take on all comers, don't even come talk to us, sort of like strongman nation. Now maybe they still have freedoms and stuff. We didn't really get into their whole geopolitical situation, but would have been like help anyone who needs help. The Federation doesn't fire first kind of thing. They've just been indiscriminately shooting visitors out of the sky because they think that they might be attackers, which, that's the thrust of the episode, is that we're learning more about this future being sort of a dark place. Again, not to belabor it, but the Wild West metaphor is apt that if you have a safe town or, plot of land, you just, somebody approaches and you don't like the way they look, you just shoot first and ask questions later. Since there's no Federation, there's no goodwill broadly throughout the sector.
Do you think we're starting to see a theme of individualism in the future and then being brought back to this principle and morality of Starfleet?
I mean, possibly. I mean, if
as
we
an
assume,
underlying reflection of what is going on politically.
If we assume that everything is going to end well, then my guess would be Starfleet's back, baby. That would be the goal. But so far, we haven't seen that that's the case. We've seen how Starfleet and the sort of the moral compass of Saru, who is the sort of the embodiment of Starfleet decision making right now, butts up against everything else in this time. Pretty much every time he's encountered someone, they have dismissed his methods out of hand as being sort of Pollyanna-ish, even if they did work in the end,
Yeah.
And both times he's been sort of unable to establish that his method might have worked, because on the saloon on the mining planet, Giorgio shows up and kills everyone except for the main bad guy. And here Michael, without permission, does this whole gambit weird thing, switcheroo, to capture Wen. So it's really a demonstration of, I feel like, of what Starfleet would like to be, and a universe, or a galaxy at least, that's sort of like this is antiquated. When Adira says this ship is like a museum, I think that also pertains to the people living on it and perhaps their points of view.
Fair points. I'm just going to go off on a tangent very quickly.
Please.
I thought that Adira was going to be a non-binary character, not necessarily just a non-binary actor.
I only read that there was going to be a non-binary actor. I mean, we don't know they've been calling her she. It could be an assumption.
Fair. I wonder if we're going to get that.
No one from Earth has gendered her. Like, Ndoye doesn't say she can stay. Ndoye says, Inspector Adira has my leave to remain with you.
That is true.
So
I'm curious.
It's really the assumptions of Tilly and Stamets and Saru. I mean, okay. Here are some things to think about, since people think this episode was so Scooby-Doo. Number one.
Wait, are we Kapla cornering?
No. This is not I'm not on a rant. These are just discussion prompts.
Are you sure?
I'm
a bit ranty.
No, not ranting yet. Probably will if you keep saying Scooby-Doo.
I'm just the messenger.
That's true. Wait, I just want to get these out because I think these are things to watch for. One, what is Book gonna do now? Apparently, it's too far for him to travel back to the sector he and Michael have been living in for the last year. Is there an exchange in this sector where Earth is? Is he gonna save more psychedelic space worms? Like, what's his deal? I think that possibly there may be an ulterior motive there or some hidden agenda that we just have not, we don't know because Michael and Book speak in like half inside joke, half silences. So I'm curious how Book, obviously they're not just going to have Book disappear after being so prominent for 2 episodes. Uh, I mentioned the militarized Earth and the disappeared Federation. Uh, and I think, I know you disagree, but I feel like Michael's got a bunch of secrets. And I'm curious what they are because, like I said, giving up the captaincy seems very strange to me. Uh, and her change in demeanor is notable. This is the person who sacrificed their whole existence to save Discovery and sentient life 2 seasons in a row.
I feel like she's
And
just had time to meditate.
no, I
right.
don't buy it.
Okay.
There's some weird stuff going on there. The we that she had in the elevator, the ways that she has
You
some
stop calling it
mysterious-
an elevator.
the turbo lift.
Thank you.
And the do you want to have a plot corner? And the way that she explains to Saru that she says, what does she say? She says, I adapted and did what I had to do to learn what happened and why. She's being very, very circumspect in her in explaining what she's been up to. She's like, oh, I've lost some things and it's going to take me some time to find them. I'm just saying there's secrets there. Also, Giorgio knows something is up. Giorgio says to Book when he's like, where's Michael? Giorgio says, in another world, I might have said Michael is somewhere being earnest and doing the right thing. In this one, I'm not so sure. I trust Giorgio implicitly with my life. And if
you
she
trust
says
Giorgio
Michael,
implicitly with your life. That is someone no one would trust implicitly with their life.
I'm not trusting Giorgio to bake me cupcakes and give me breakfast in bed, but I trust Giorgio. If she thinks something is weird, something is weird. She knew about Leland before Leland. She knew. She knows. She knows. She knew when what's his face came back that he was full of it. I've already forgotten his name. Captain from season 1.
Oh, Lorca.
When Lorca came back, she was like, no, she didn't buy it. I'm just saying. Giorgio, 2 people that it's hard to fool on Star Trek Discovery. Tilly and Giorgio. And they both have direct conversations with Michael where they say, we don't really know who you are now. Giorgio is sort of like, oh, you're kind of doing some crazy stuff. And Tilly's like, I don't know who you are, but I still love you. So I suspect Michael's got a lot of stuff going on in this year that she has not yet communicated to the rest of her crew, if indeed she plans to integrate to the crew. She did accept the job as number 1. Just saying.
Okay. What about, do we have any other thoughts? Any other plot points
Scooby-Doo
we want to
that.
discuss?
No, that's about it. I feel well, Detmer, we were worried that she was under the control of control last episode.
I think that'll happen next episode. I have a feeling.
I think it's less that and more that she's like suffering from PTSD after this episode.
All right.
I think it was a deliberate moment where she questioned Saru's order.
Mm-hmm.
She seemed sort of shy to take another hit. So we'll see. Could be control.
Yeah.
Could not be.
Maybe.
All right, we'll see.
We
These
shall
are
see.
our predictions, and we're gonna come back to these, and we're gonna watch these, and we're gonna fight about it.
No,
That's it.
actually,
That's all I got.
talking about the one big reveal was the burn and what it was. We were finally told what the burn was.
Well, but still not what it was really, right?
Yeah, we were told that the for some reason dilithium
Is what I mean.
was inert, but
Exploded.
yes,
Went
not for
inert and
why.
exploded.
Yeah.
Also, we found out it was sort of mentioned very briefly in Michael's description that the burn happened after dilithium supplies had dried up. So in her intro personal log, she says 700 years after we left, dilithium supplies dried up, and then came the burn.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of Easter eggs in here. Frakes was a busy little boy, hiding all this menace beneath hugs and tears.
Mm-hmm.
That's
all
all
right.
I'm
Well,
saying.
we shall see.
Yeah.
But obviously, someone is behind the burn. Someone
Yeah.
wanted Starfleet out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Someone wanted to potentially monopolize dilithium.
We don't know to whom it benefited. Yeah.
No, we don't. We
Doesn't
shall
seem
see.
like it was. Doesn't seem like it was Earth.
No.
Doesn't seem
What-
like it was the exchange per se. We'll see. Yeah.
Someone we've yet to meet, perhaps.
Almost certainly. And also in the next time thing, there was a lot of Michael shooting people in the next episode. So we'll see about that. Do you want to move on to quotable moments?
Let's do it.
Quotable moments.
Do you have any in particular? I mentioned a few in the rundown.
You mentioned a few in the rundown. I think I've slightly forgotten what mine was. It might have been something between Tilly. I didn't write it down because I only got to see it once. Usually I get to see them twice.
Oh, you've only seen it once.
I've only seen it once.
There weren't a lot of like long speeches here because I feel like they were too busy distracting us from the things that were really happening. I stand by it.
Saru had a nice moment when he took over.
Yes, he said, I didn't write that down, but I think he said something to the effect of the name of this ship is Discovery, and never has that been more apt and more prescient. And we have come to the future, and we will make it a bright one.
There was something about bright or light or something
Yeah.
into the future, yes.
Yes, I liked that.
So pleased for Doug Jones. He's a captain.
Doug Jones.
Love
is a
our Doug
captain.
Jones.
Yes,
Doug
and
Jones likes our podcast. Do you know that?
I've heard that he liked something that we did.
He
I
did,
think
yeah.
something that you did.
He liked two things that we did.
Oh, well, gosh. Well,
That means
two,
it's more than one, and it's,
Yeah, well-
he's a fan.
once he gets to 3, we'll see.
All right, fine.
I'll quote him here because I enjoyed when he, instead of dressing down Michael for not informing him of her plan, he just says, "Yes, you should have," and he says, "quote, trust must remain an assumption between us." I like this Saru command style. It's not it's not manic cowboy crazy pants Lorca, and it's not charming cowboy with the heart of gold and a deep well of thoughts like Pike, but it is something. It's
Something in
very
them,
interesting.
yeah.
It's very empathetic.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely empathetic.
And just Giorgio, just to underscore my point, she says to Michael when they're having that walk and talk, once you've grown used to living by your own rules, not so easy to follow other people's, is it? So,
Amen.
that's all I'm saying. Michael's been out there running and gunning. Kapla. No,
Kapla.
this is a very light Kapla corner. I'm just saying that if you think this series is suddenly going to turn into like an episodic everything is happy at the end thing because of the last 2 episodes, then I think you've taken the bait that they want you to take. Never in the last 2 seasons have they had anything that wasn't a story arc of 6 or 7 episodes. So.
All right. Shall
You've
we?
only just scratched the surface. We didn't go to the mirror universe until like 8 episodes in season 1. All right, done. Not gonna rant.
Shall we next time?
Yes, let's next time.
Next time on Set Phasers.
All right. Well, next time on Set Phasers, we will discuss season 3, episode 4 of Star Trek Discovery. We have the name of it. It is Forget Me Not. Did I just cut off there? Because it got weird, choppy here.
A little, yes. We're fine. We got you.
Okay.
Forget me.
All right,
not.
I'll say it again. Let me go back. Pick up. I'm going to pick it up. Season 3, episode 4, Forget Me Not. So tune in for that. I suspect a lot of terrible things are going to happen, and Steph is keeping her thoughts to herself. But listen, thank you for joining us, no matter who you agree with. And if you enjoyed the program, you can catch us every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live or as a podcast every Monday, wherever podcasts come from. And if you can find it, please subscribe, rate and subscribe. It's very helpful to us.
It is. It's very helpful to us and important. And don't forget, if you do want to join us on our Patreon, this weekend we are doing a Netflix watch party. We love to watch Trek, and we want to watch Trek with you. So if you want to watch with us on Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be watching Tinker, Tenor, Dr.
Tinker
Spy.
Tailor Dr. Spy.
No, it says tenor. I looked it up. It said Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy because he's a
Does he do
tenor.
some
He's
singing? Oh.
Yeah, I think so. So it's season 5 or 6, is it?
I think it's
From
season
Voyager?
6 of Voyager. I think
Season
so.
6 of Voyager with our favorite doctor in the house.
Yes, Robert
Join
Picardo.
us on Patreon for that. We are patreon.com/Set Phasers
Yes, if you want to support us in our continuing mission, then you can go to patreon.com/setphasers and support us, and you can watch shows with us, and you can be a big nerd
Yep, with us. You won't
with
feel
us.
out of place.
Yeah, not alone. This is where it's a welcoming community. Scooby-Doo or no.
Well, until next time, or until Sunday, I'm Steph Mans.
And I'm Aki Burmese, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.